Well, hello, camera friends, and welcome back to the Focus On Forum here at Focus On Camera, where we discuss everything camera department. I'm your host, Greg Irwin, and I am so happy and pleased to have our next guest today, Chris Cool, producer from Walt Disney Motion Picture Production Group, with credits like Young Woman and the Sea, Elevation, Godzilla vs. Kong, and the one Chris and I did together, Jungle Cruise. But before we get into this, I want to remind everybody, please visit us at focusoncamera.com to see how you can elevate your career in focus pulling and the business of the camera department starting today. Chris, welcome to the program. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Greg. It's great to be here. Hello, everyone out there.
So, Chris, you're a big-time producer. You have a different perspective of things than the below-the-line crew. We're all about assistant camera people here today. And I just wanted to get your perspectives on a few topics, if you wouldn't mind, for, saying, let's talk about the business side of the camera department.
I would love to. And let's get this straight. I'm just a humble filmmaker efforting to bring a director's vision to the screen. That's what we all do. It's a team effort. And it's the most important thing is the story and creating an inspired piece of art.
Well, amen to that. I believe in that as well. And that's such an important attitude and attribution to have in this business. Let's see. Let's start with talking about your first contact with a crew member, particularly a first AC. What are your questions going to be, or your observations? What do you look for in a first AC joining a picture that you're producing?
Well, first off, it's just establishing a very trustworthy relationship with them where we can communicate in terms of what is needed and how I can help provide that to them. And it's hopefully in its best form, a wonderful partnership that we work through together, because there's a lot of unknowns as you go through the length of a feature shoot. But essentially you need first and foremost that trust and that communication in order for anything good to happen from there on out.
So in short, we all want to have a good business relationship with each other, one that's upstanding, transparent, and productive.
Absolutely. The worst thing that any crew member, and it doesn't matter what department it comes from, is to surprise production with just instantaneous problems. If you can forecast them, even if it's bad news, production loves to hear that as early as possible, because that allows us to manage it and make at least the best of things out of, sometimes there's bad situations that happen.
Mm-hmm. It's real life. Well, and that's a very valid point that you were suggesting a moment ago, is we're discussing the camera department in particular, but you're dealing with so many moving parts, so many different departments, the studio, the whole machine is in your hands, that it's incredible how you do it, actually.
It's just time and effort and grinding it out for the most part. But from production management standpoint, we're dealing with 20 some departments, and each is vital to the project. And so, everybody needs to communicate with us so that we can make all the pieces sort of mesh together in the best way possible.
In the time and budget allotted.
Correct.
It's I think it gets very myopic for people in my department to think about that it's so most important about us in the camera department and not all of the other departments as a whole trying to achieve the common goal. I think that's a fair statement. One thing we do talk about at Focus on Camera a lot is the sense of entitlement that the camera department sometimes has. And that can be damaging to a working relationship, especially with production. What are your thoughts on that?
Admittedly, camera is essential to shooting a movie or a TV show or any project. but every department is vital. I mean, if we look at it from a budgetary standpoint, camera is about usually 3 to 8% of budgetary spend. And like I noted earlier, there are 25 other departments that are equally as critical to bringing it, the vision to the screen. When any one department, I'm not just going to call out camera on this, but when any department sort of isolates themselves and thinks that they are above any other department, then we have a disconnect, because on a huge movie, you've got 1,000 other crew members, and everybody needs to work in lockstep in order to bring the director's vision to the screen. And that's the most important part of the whole process. Is why everybody's there, or why everybody should be there, is to do the best work that we can in order to allow the director to tell the story that they're trying to tell.
And does that happen occasionally? Do you meet those types of individuals?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, some people seem to look out only for themselves and aren't really in it for the common goal of creating an inspired piece of art. And frankly, we remember those people, and those are people who we don't, from a production standpoint, don't work with moving forward. And it's a small community of production managers, supervisors, etc., line producers, and whether formally or informally, we all talk, we all reference check, and we know who the good eggs are, and we know who the bad eggs are, and that is just something that that will follow you for your entire career, for good or for bad.
Right. And it's a misunderstanding to think that the studio, if you're doing a studio production, doesn't know who you are, because they do, and that's a good thing, because that is going to enhance your career, pave the way forward for your career. And, we're looking at the big picture here, not the cash grab on one movie, but we're looking for, years to create a career. And so these relationships are so imperative to have on the good side.
Absolutely. And for good or for bad, people are aware of how you conduct yourself, both on a set, behind the scenes. We see all the equipment orders that come through. We're just aware, whether it's the line producer, the production manager, production supervisor, all the way through production coordinators, APOCs, who then grow up to be the line producers and the production managers. We remember who's straight with us, who does a great job, who is transparent and honest and all about the work. And those are the people we continue to work with, those who do it right. The people that we know, like, and trust, that's who we work with time and time and time again.
And that's a very good point, because, funny story, I did a movie called Showgirls. It's infamous. It became a cult classic back in the 1990s.
Indeed.
And our key set PA on that movie was my executive producer on Star Trek Beyond. Really great guy. Really great guy. We love him.
Young people, they grow up, they learn things, and you never know where they're going to end up. So, treat the highest rung on the ladder in just the same way as you would treat the lowest rung on the ladder.
Absolutely. Amen.
That's what it's about. It's just treating everybody with respect and honesty, and supporting them, not just to the goal of you never know where they're going to be, but just that's how you should conduct yourself in a professional and frankly personal environment.
Absolutely. Your character and credibility. Another thing we speak endlessly about at Focus on Camera, character and credibility is what makes you or breaks you. If you have it, you're going to go far. If you lack in character and credibility, you're going to hit a couple roadblocks, and that's not going to be helpful for you going forward, elevating your career to the next level.
Correct.
So very, very important, wise words from Mr. Cole here. Let's talk about something that's become very popular in our class, business negotiation.
Okay.
We cover it extensively at Focus on Camera. And it's become a very, very fun portion of the class. The students love it because camera people, movie people in general, crew, but camera people is who we're talking about now. We're not the best business people. We are so focused, no pun intended, on you know, refining our craft and getting good at our craft that we forget that there's a whole business side to the motion picture industry. So we covered that. And I think it's worth spending a few minutes here with you today talking about when a crew person like a first AC, say, or whoever calls you or you call them, the initial phone call, and that's usually the deal making stage of the program. A lot of times our crew will just accept whatever you say because they're nervous. They don't want to make waves. They don't want to lose the job. What advice do you have for them?
Well, first and foremost, because I think that sometimes the relationship between production and crew can get sort of misperceived as being antagonistic, and it should never be viewed that way. Recognize that production, we have X number of dollars to make a show, and we're trying to put as much money on the screen as possible. We're trying to fulfill the director's vision first and foremost. That is our purpose. Within that construct, however, there is some flexibility in terms of where the money kind of is spent. What I would encourage crew members, camera team people to consider is value yourself, value your skill set. Understand that the opening offer is probably not necessarily all that there is on the table, and that they're not going to lose the job necessarily by asking for a little bit more or some other things, which are all allocated budgetarily. For instance, if it's a location show, we're talking hotels, we're talking per diem, we're talking car rental, we're talking gas, talking maybe if you're making a lot of calls on behalf of production, there is some money there for a cell phone allowance, things of this nature. Additionally, you kind of have to, and Greg, you can probably weigh in on this, that there are some projects you have to view from a perspective of, this is going to be an amazing production. I can't wait to work with this set of creatives. And so maybe you accept a little bit less in order to fold into the show versus maybe a big show with a lot of money that you find less inspiring. Then maybe you push it for a few dollars an hour more on that kind of a show. So just take into account that both, building a resume, working with unbelievably inspired creatives, that there's an opportunity to that you can't really quantify in money.
Yes. One thing, I understand 100% what you're saying, and that I think is very, very true. One thing I like to do, if you and I were going to go into a negotiation over the phone, not necessarily on video together, or in person together, regardless, if it's any of it, I would have all my bullet points on a piece of paper in front of me, what I'm willing to gain, what I'm willing to leave, and give up, and have everything listed out in front of me so I don't have to struggle to remember all of my deal points that I wish to discuss. And that way we can have a really nice conversation, take our time. If I have to pivot away from something that's not working in my favor, I could do that and circle back to it. Again, we discussed this in detail and at length at Focus on Camera, the strategies and tactics. And you can have a very successful negotiation because in the end, both sides need to feel good about it. It's not a winner takes all. We accept certain gains, we give up certain things that aren't maybe as important to work on this incredible picture. Same with you, Chris. You're probably going to take the gains and take the losses, for lack of a better word, in stride to to achieve an overall good deal that both sides can feel good about.
Without question, that's great advice, Greg. And yeah, having it all spelled out on paper in front of you while you go into the phone call is you're putting yourself in a great position to have a straightforward conversation about just the deal points. And this is not something that it's not an emotional conversation, though sometimes it does get emotional with certain crew members, and those are the conversations that don't go well. But
Right.
if both sides know what's possible, where there's a little bit of room for give and take, then both parties go into making a deal that, like you said, everybody feels good about.
Yeah.
And from production standpoint, I don't want, it is not in the best interest of the picture to have a crew member feel like they're being taken advantage of as they go into it. I want somebody to show up the first day of work having made a deal that they're really excited about, and they're really excited to work on the picture, because I know that enthusiasm is going to carry through the whole production, all the long hours, all the difficult shoot days, all the sort of dark times that we encounter as we shoot a picture, because it's not an easy thing. And so if I can, in the deal making process, make every single crew member feel good about the deal that they have made, and that that they're genuinely enthusiastic to be working on the picture, then I've done my job well, and the picture will be better off for it.
Here, here. That's really wise and so important to remember. So I guess in the end, prioritize your needs, prioritize what you really truly need to gain from the negotiation, and understand what you can compromise on in the end to come
Absolutely.
out with a favorable deal to
Yep.
keep you excited on the show.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to ask about things.
Production manager is not going to feel that in any way that's off-putting. You'll just address it in a very straightforward kind of a way.
And transparency is key to this.
Absolutely.
Being understanding. We've heard all the horror stories of equipment being rented that didn't exist, or padding the time cards with extra time, when I think you pretty much know that that's not the case in the end, because of the production report and all of your cross-referencing tools. So, I think that's important during this negotiation discussion, to understand that transparency and having an upstanding character and credibility with your business relationship and business communication with production makes all the difference in the world. It really does.
Absolutely. From a gear rental standpoint, production obviously needs what it needs in order to shoot the stuff we're trying to shoot. We have to get it from somewhere. If the crew members have it, we'll rent it from them. But just be straightforward with us. This is what we need. We're happy to pay you. We're happy to cover everything so long as it's needed, all in the goal of putting essentially the money on the screen, which is really just in service of the director's vision. Things get not so nice when we find out that crew members are taking advantage of production, which essentially is sacrificing the quality of the picture and taking away from the director's vision, which inherently we're all meant to be efforting to achieve in its best form. And timing of, or padding of your time cards and stuff like that. Production works longer hours than everybody. We're always around. We are aware of who comes in and what time they came in and what time they left. It would be unwise to think that nobody's going to notice when you came in and when you left. But the other side of it is, if you're straightforward with all this, production often will, pat on your behalf because you've been doing great work, and we knew that certain conditions were very difficult. And so went above and beyond and didn't say anything about it. And we want to take care of them. Like, production looks after its crew members so long as the crew members are looking after the production.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that, Chris. In particular, I spent probably 2 months before I ever begin on payroll, building the camera package in the computer, prepping the prep, getting everything ready to go for when we do start on payroll officially. And that's all on my own time. That's a lot of hours on my own time, but I feel it's necessary to be prepared for when I do start, because like you say, it all shows up in on the screen with your performance. However, I have had producers come to me more than once saying, "We know how much effort you put in on your own time. We would like to compensate you for that." It's completely unexpected. I don't expect that time to be compensated, but boy, do I appreciate it when that is noticed. And it helps. It really helps.
Well,
The morale high, that's for sure.
Everybody, crew members should know that we do notice, and the good production managers not only notice, but they'll take care of you in some manner of speaking, whether it's an extra week of rep or a couple weeks rep, or a 6-day here or something like that. Like, you'll get your effort, the time you put in will be not only noticed, but it will be acknowledged, appreciated, and compensated at some point. And
that builds a trust, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Those are the people I don't want to do just one picture with. That's a crew member I want to work with for decades and decades.
Yeah, building the long game, not the cash grab on one movie.
Correct.
That's really something for you all out there listening and watching this program to understand. It's a privilege. I feel like I'm privileged when I get hired to do a big movie. I'm so thrilled that they even thought my name for the job. That not only do I want to do a great job, I want to be the most upstanding, transparent, business-minded crew member with production, so that gets remembered for years to come. And because of that, I've worked for Warner Brothers over 40 years, and that studio has really been good to me, I must say. And it's effort on both sides. It's a hand-in-hand cooperation. Let's talk about business communication, the virtues of it, the challenges, the good things, what you look for from crew members.
Well, like I said before, the worst thing in the world is to be surprised by any department from a production standpoint. And I understand that within each department, certain things go sideways and you try to just cover in order, and you just make it happen, even though, some things might not have, there may have been some hiccups along the way. But I would just encourage everybody to realize that production is there to help solve problems. And so if there are issues, to just communicate openly with your production supervisor, your production manager, in order the team to help solve any issues that come up. Apart from that, it should just be a fun, endeavor for the whole team to go off and make a beautiful movie, and everything should be respectful and, just supportive as you go through. Shooting a movie, Greg, as you know, it's not an easy thing.
No.
They're long days, long days and hard days. And, if you're on location or wherever, you're shooting 6-day weeks, you're just overtired, overworked, but you're just, you're all in it together. And just remember that. I would say that, sometimes departments get a little irritated with with production because we ask a lot of questions. And it's not that we're trying to give you a hard time. It really comes down to the simple fact that y'all are the experts, for instance, in the camera department. We want to learn, and we have the obligation and responsibility to look after, the budget and how much we're spending on and on what we're spending it on. And we're not the experts, and we recognize that, but we need to know why we're spending X dollars on this thing or that thing or the other. And it's not because we're trying to give you a hard time. It's just because we're trying to know what's going on.
Well, the pie is only so big, and you're slicing that budget pie so many different ways.
Correct.
And then you're having to move money all over the place to cover the unexpected costs, right?
Yep.
And I think we all have a responsibility to be sympathetic to that. We know what we want, but we need to do it within the confines of our budget and schedule. That's just smart business.
Indeed. And from a holistic perspective, depending upon the size of the movie, camera department accounts for roughly 3 to maybe 8% of the entire budget of the movie. So know that it's obviously a critical component to making a movie, but I mean, we're talking about less than 1/10 of the overall spend of any project. There are a lot of conversations that happen within every department, and we just need to be responsible stewards of spending the money that, whether it's a studio or an independent financier or what have you, we need to be responsible in terms of looking out for how that money is spent.
A producer explained to me one time years ago that making a motion picture in the business world is like raising piranhas in a bathtub. It's an untested product. If we're making widgets of some type or a new food product, we're going to test it. We're going to know if there's a market out there before we commit everything to it. Movies are different. We make the movie and we're hoping it's going to be a success.
Yeah.
But we've all been there on huge budget movies that absolutely have bombed, and you don't know why all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this, that nobody goes into making a movie, or at least not that I'm aware, thinking it's not going to be good. And
right.
Everybody expends the same amount of effort, which is extraordinary, on a movie that turns out well and a movie that turns out poorly.
Right.
So we go into it together with the optimism that we're going to do something great, and sometimes it just doesn't work out.
That's very, very true. I've worked on, I've been wrong so many times on pictures I've done. Ones that I thought were going to be incredible have flopped, and ones that I didn't have a lot of expectations of after it was over. Huge hit. Who knew? That's the raising piranhas in the bathtub part.
And I guarantee you, your effort and dedication to your craft didn't change one iota from one picture to the next.
Never. You have to have pride in your job. We all do, whether you're on production side or the crew side. It's who we are. It's what we do. Mm-hmm. And if we do a poor job at it, people are going to take notice and remember. I know with people I've had over the years in my past, I've been doing this 45 years. There are several people, a lot of people that I haven't invited back because I didn't think they lived up to our standards. Mm-hmm. That's one reason why my team does the big Hollywood movies. We have very high standards that we maintain. We don't just talk about it, we do it.
Yep.
And we have a wonderful relationship with production. And, I can't speak highly enough to that point. It's all character and credibility in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a certain standard of how you execute the task and the work at hand that is individual, and those who take it very serious are going to continue on for lengthy careers, and those who phone it in at times their careers will be either shorter or they will work on less quality, lower quality projects.
Yes, you never know how it's going to go.
Mhm.
So it's in your best interest to live up to the best.
Thank you for having me, Greg. And I love what you're doing. I love the Focus on Camera program. I think that it's only going to inform and help create and educate the next generation of camera department workers. And the more that they can be prepared moving forward and entering into the industry, the better off not just they will be, but films in general, frankly.
Well, thank you, Chris Cool, producer extraordinaire, for joining us on the Focus on Forum here at Focus on Camera. And thank you all, camera friends, for joining us on this program. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a couple of things in the meantime. I want to encourage you to check us out at focusoncamera.com to see when and where we are bringing our acclaimed 2-day in-person program to a city near you. Start elevating your career to the next level. Compete with the top people. Understand how focus pulling is creative, not technical, and the business side for making better deals for yourself. In the meantime, if there are comments or topics that we haven't covered that you would like to hear, drop us a comment below on Instagram at FocusOnCamera33. We would love to hear from you and discuss your concerns and topics of interest. And